After 8:30, and we continue tracking national reaction to President Cyril Ramaphosa's address on the conclusion of South Africa's G20 presidency. I'm Ntlanhla Sihume, and you're watching Newsfeed PM. And over the next while, we'll bring you analysis, political response, and insight into what the president's message means for the country going forward. So do stay with us as we unpack the key moments and hear from leaders across the political spectrum. Remember to send us your comments and questions as well on WhatsApp as well to 072-110-5584 or call us on 010-594-6010. And do engage with us on X. We are at Newzroom 405. Now, the UDM's Nqabayomzi Kwankwa joins us now for his party's reaction. Mr. Kwankwa, good to have you on the program this evening. So the president repeatedly used the term misinformation in his address. Let's speak about this. In your view, is he describing a genuine national security threat here, or is he attempting to reframe political dissent as information, especially over what's been said about South Africa?
Well, remember, I think he's trying very hard. He's doing his level best to click on the reset button with regards to the relationship between South Africa and the United States of America. For example, if he had used the words, which I can use because I'm not in government, disinformation, because with the level and the kind of intelligence services that the United States of America has, there's no way that they could not establish the information about whether there's white genocide in South Africa. It's a smoke screen. Our only sin was taking Israel to the ICJ, and that's why we find ourselves where we are today. But I commend the president for taking a very measured tone. For example, calling it misinformation on the one hand, but also he did something very interesting. He pitted the Trump administration against the U.S. people by saying we are friends of the people of the United States of America. Our disagreement with the administration should not be misconstrued to think that we have a problem or we don't like Americans in general. But also he said, when he explained the entire GNU fiasco, not the GNU, I beg your pardon, the G20 fiasco, he also did exactly that by pitting President Trump against other members of the G20 to say these are the founding principles, this is how the forum works, and we have to follow those guiding principles in terms of how we conduct ourselves in the G20 as far as the G20 is concerned. And that's why South Africa expects to play its role as a legitimate member of that forum into the foreseeable future.
But what's curious for me, Mr. Kwankwa, is that when a sitting president, for instance, publicly addresses misinformation, I mean, it could sometimes also signal vulnerability rather than strength. Let's speak to this element. What does this tell us about the administration's political position right now?
Well, look, when it comes to the misinformation, he's trying to discredit, obviously, the kind of information that the U.S. administration is relying on.
Right.
But also, I think he was magnanimous in saying that we need to sit around the table and discuss with people who are actually engaging in treasonous behavior, if you look at it, because they are trying to undermine the interest and the global standing of South Africa to other nations around the world by spreading the wrong information about South Africa. Obviously, there's a political agenda insofar as that is concerned. I mean, you have right-wing elements in our country who are happy now that there is the growth of right-wing political parties around the country and administrations that actually listen to whatever nonsense they say. The president had no choice but to use those words in order to try and flag that the fundamental basis for these allegations are incorrect, the information is incorrect, and is deliberately peddled by some people from our country for their nefarious political objectives.
Yeah. So the president called this a people's G20. From your perspective, especially after hearing him now, did the speech even demonstrate that ordinary South Africans truly benefited from this meeting? Maybe let's touch on those comments as well.
Well, look, the People's G20 is focused on trying to improve the material conditions of our people. I think how they couched it, the fact that he made an example about social summits which focused on specific issues that speak to the material conditions of the people. But the only way to really make it a truly People's G20 is by making sure that the declarations and the resolutions taken in the G20, which took place in South Africa, are indeed implemented, and those benefits are materialized in the, when it comes to the material conditions of the people of our country and the continent as a whole, because the focus really was on challenges that face the developing world, and in particular a number of African countries, to try and change the status quo insofar as the economic situation, the financial situation, and some of the challenges that they are grappling with on a daily basis.
Yeah. So the president also highlighted, Mr. Kwankwa, glowing comments from world leaders, especially about South Africa's, he mentioned hospitality and also our leadership in this country as well. How significant is this diplomatically, and does it matter politically at home?
It matters a lot. It matters both here at home and on the African continent as well. It matters because it was the first G20 to be held on the African continent. Firstly, there are a lot of naysayers. It's the same attitude that we saw, the cynicism that we saw when we were about to host the 2010 FIFA World Cup, for example, existed even around this time, where very few leaders, for example, especially those who are right-wing, expected South Africa to be able to pull it off. But also, I think those comments, they confirm that indeed there's leadership in Africa. If we're given the necessary resources and the platforms for us to be able to influence positive change around the world, we can do that, and we can do that with bright colors. And the South African government did that. But what is important is to continue beyond that, so that we don't only clean our house in order to impress guests, and then as soon as the guests are gone, we allow our people to live in filth, which is the point he was talking about, service delivery. But he will have to do exactly what they have been doing, trying to sort out G20 issues in order to improve the service delivery machinery in the country. So yes, indeed, those comments and the validation, the congratulatory messages are very important, because they come from leaders around the world who came to South Africa, made a contribution, adopted the declaration. I mean, during the first session of the G20, I beg your pardon, which was significant when you look at its history, and that is first the deliberations and later the declaration is adopted. It means South Africa had already done its spade work, had done extensive lobbying long before the G20 meeting started.
We've heard from Clement as well as Muzi in Rustenburg shortly before that. But as I wrap with you, beyond the president calling these allegations baseless and false, what do you think is the real subtext of his message to the U.S.? Is it a message of reassurance, frustration, or a recalibration of sorts?
It's a combination. It's a combination where we are setting our sovereignty and independence as a country, and that we should be respected as such. Secondly, that's why he was outlining the role that we're going to continue to play in the G20, but also he's still busy trying to reset the relationship between South Africa and the US. I mean, we can't give up on the United States of America in spite of their politics, for example, that are hardly based on any principle, fact, or truth, for example, because President Trump can just simply wake up and make wild allegations against any country, and for an entire period we have to deal with that issue. So he's trying to do that, trying to reset the relationship between South Africa and America, asserting the independence and the authority of South Africa as a sovereign state on the one hand, but on the other hand also saying we value Americans and the American people, citing the contribution to our liberation struggle and so on, but also appealing to other G20 partners to say this should be our collective challenge. We should resolve it collectively instead of just leaving South Africa on its own to try and resolve this problem.
Nqabayomzi, he is the UDM Deputy President, continuing to give us his perspective on this issue as the President briefed the nation on recent developments, including the meeting of the G20 here in Newzroom. We do thank Mr. Kwankwa for his perspective.